repository is taken into account if, in some stage in the future, the government decides to decline it to waste, so it's a contingency allowance. But I think we are here dealing with higher activity waste, and that's very well defined. There's a gentleman here who has a question.
The next consultation document was based on the call for evidence that came before it. And in paragraph 4 of your response, Forum states that it carried out its own analysis. Carried out its own analysis of the call for evidence responses to understand better the views of others in formulating its response to the consultation. That being the case, why is it supporting the exclusion of county councils in two-tier authorities? Can't you see that quorum's integrity is in danger of being compromised?
That's fine.
Those two things together. What quorum said in its response was that it was favour of local decision making. It recognised, and I think the words we used were, we understand where the government was coming from in their consultation document, and was saying that it was a district council or something like that that would be the decision-making body, representative authority. We did, however, qualify that by pointing out very clearly that there were other issues that needed to be taken into account, and that in any subsequent white paper, the government needed to spell out all of the options and spell out the pros and cons of those options. And I guess what we have to do is to wait and see how the government responds to the responses that have got from the consultation. Any of my colleagues like to add to that?
An individual on a piece of paper, 6 lines, who says that he's tied up with Imperial College in London, who said that if you can't get one way, we must go to district council. Those were the only people, those responsive to the corporations who came up with this suggestion. So we are now left conceivably with the dark situation that a very small district council is the one that is going to be making the decision for the Cumbria area. But out in authorities where it isn't a two-tier authority, it's going to be like Cumbria, it's going to be like Staffordshire. It's large authorities, but across the government is targeting this area. It has chosen to go for the nice, simple option of having a representative authority, which is Copeland. It would like a host community or Senegal. So when you could continue through this whole fiasco, the government is trying to force the front. You're going to have Copeland, Senegal, your implementing organisation, and then you are going to be making the decision. That is all I've got to say.
Could I just say that that proposal was in a consultation document. So I think you have to wait and see how the government responds to responses to that consultation document, including the response of this committee, before you can form a judgment on this final decision. So I'd say wait until you see the final white paper comes out. But hang on, I'll come back to you. So we note your views, and those views are very well known from a number of people. I've got a question there.
Can I just add to the
point that's just been made, just so that the committee's aware, in case they're not, that only 2 of the parish councillors in Allerdale formally voted in favour of the proposals that Allerdale District Council then voted in, when actually the discussions at that council meeting were quite significantly against the proposal. And I think you need to be aware that parish councils are not being represented effectively in Allerdale, certainly I can't speak for Copeland, in that parish council views are not being taken on board. So therefore, if we use the district authorities, it may well not fully represent what people in that area want.
Could I just ask, I presume that the parish councils wrote into the consultation?
Yes.
Yeah. I've got a question there.
Margaret Froth, above Derwent Parish Council. This is about your document, Quorum's Proposed Work Programme 2014 to 17 final. That's Quorum Document 3151, 26th of March 2014. Within that document, Task 1A, you say you scrutinise DECC's analysis of the GDS siting process consultation responses. And my question is, will Quorum, as an independent scrutiny body of DECC, help the general public by offering clarification to the DECC summary in response to the siting process, as currently the summary is at best nonsense? In addition, can you make available the measuring criteria used to determine what is to be changed or added to the GDF siting process?
Well, can I say that again, wait until we see the response to documents and see what
But you spoke the same thing.
And if we as a committee wish to comment on that, we'll see it.
But my understanding is you're the advisors. Well, would you not have a view if you're going to advise DECC and the government? Surely you would have a view, and surely you're here to share those views with us. Otherwise, I don't see the point of
A view on what?
your views in general.
Our views on the siting process are here. This is what we have submitted to government.
Yes, but you say, Task 1A, that you've scrutinised DECC's analysis. You will.
That's an exchange programme.
Right, so you haven't as yet done that.
No, because we haven't seen what the government has done in response to all of the consultations.
No, this is the analysis.
That's when we'll look at that now.
Right, so you haven't as yet done that. I see you give it 5% of your working time to do that, and it's certainly that is a high priority. Is that correct? Because at the moment, what we've got...
I think on the document it shows it's a high priority.
Yes, your document says it is a high priority. Okay, can we have an idea of when that might be looked at?
When we see what the government's powers responding to the consultation, then we can look at what they are proposing.
So the government is going to make a statement on the consultation, or going to produce a white paper, and so we have to wait until the summer, sometime in the summer. And so, you know, what is the point of Quorum to us? In what way are you sharing, other than saying that we will wait until the government makes a response?
We will share everything, publish everything that we do. And when we do it, it'll be published.
Well, so far I haven't really heard anything other than saying that we'll wait until the government makes a statement.
Well, we'll wait until we get the information from the government. We presume that they will ask our advice before they publish it. And if they do, then we'll give our advice.
Okay, right, you've had it. Thank you.
Could I just make a couple of points on this? I mean, one of the interesting things in the summary response that came out from DECC, the 8-pager in response, is very interesting because normally government would say how they react to the comments, whereas in this case, the document they produced was just a factual statement of what people had actually said, which makes it very unusual in terms of a government response. What government have said they're going to do, they're going to be producing their response to the consultation at the same time they published the white paper. And I would have thought that, speaking individually, and I think we as a committee later will be looking very, very carefully at how they have incorporated the views from this consultation and the wide range of views which were expressed, and taken those into account when they're formulating the white paper. If you want my personal view, there are so many contrasting and conflicting views in the response that's come in from the 700 responses. If I was in government, I could almost pick and choose what I wanted to do because of the range of different views which are expressed there. But the practical reality is that if government does not take account of these responses in the consultation, I think they will be in very severe problems.
Sorry, can I just add one final thing? If you have read the summary, you would be amazed by, there makes no sense at all to it. So it gives you a range, like the group who mentioned a particular, say something like the county council, they would say things like it was a small group of people. They then say a small group of people actually means anything from 30 to 70%. And somehow we're supposed to pick through this summary and really understand, well, what 30 to 70%? How do we know if that's a small number of people, a large number of people? What does that mean? And this is how the summary is at the moment. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And quite frankly, it's incredibly, we get to the point where we really are absolutely sick of this because nobody takes any of us seriously. You think we're complete idiots, and you give us those sorts of, DECC has given us this summary which makes no sense at all. And no wonder in Cumbria people get so fed up with people coming back time and time again and talking about trust.
I think you can be assured that when Quorum, as it will do as part of our scrutiny functions, comments on the actual documentation, that we will have quite a lot to say about that 8-page document. And I'm sympathetic with your views relating to this kind of terminology that they're using in it about a few, a small number, a majority. I agree with you that it is very difficult to actually understand. And it's complicated by the fact, to my mind, that government have been in a difficult position when undertaking this analysis, that of the 700 and something replies, something like 300 were standardised letters, which basically said the same kind of thing. Now, how government have handled that, I don't know, because we won't know until they actually come up with their report at the same time as the white paper.
Francis? It's really just picking up a couple of points and trying to clarify for you, I think. First of all, Quorum's year does not start in January. Quorum's year starts on the 1st of April, so we are 3 weeks or 4 weeks into our 2014 work programme, which is why relatively little has been done. Second point, if we are scrutinising something, we have to have something to scrutinise, and at the moment we don't. So it's not realistic to expect us to have done scrutiny of something that doesn't yet exist. It will be done when it exists and we can get hold of it.
John, would you have something, and then I'll
I think the other point to make it clear is that all the documents, all the consultation responses are on the DECC website. So you can actually see categorically what each and every individual and organisation has said. So you can do, as we have sought to do, our own analysis of the responses, not relying just on the 8-page document.
If I'm going to get through all these, please, this gentleman.
How are you getting on with that? Well, we have formed our own judgment, are forming our own judgment on how. Well, no, because we don't know. We see what has been said. We will now see how, just as you will, how DECC respond to it, and we reserve the right as an independent organisation, an independent committee, to criticise DECC if we feel that they have not adequately responded to the responses that they've got, the 700 plus they've received. But we can't comment on that because we are in no position like yourselves to know what the white paper is actually saying.
What have I got from the white paper? Say that the lady up there, Margaret, made a very sensible point that basically she doesn't tell us anything. There's some way in the responses, there's actually the same metrics. When the metrics are there, people have submitted the consultation for the things to be worked out.
And that's why we have to see, as Brian has very clearly articulated, that we will have to see how the government have responded to take it. You do, because you have to, but you have to see how they're interpreting it, and then you have to look at the way in which they've analysed it. If we don't believe that they've analysed it properly, then we'll say so. There's a lady at the back there, Brian.
The key thing is that in a response, in a consultation like this, you get the entire spread of everybody's views, all of them. That actually doesn't give the answer, it gives you a huge variety of the questions. Right? So, as has already been said, the government has got to pick a path through this, and we have to look and see to what extent, we think the path they've picked is appropriate. We can't do anything now because we don't know anywhere between 0 and 100 where they will actually go. And yes, if we get a point where 99% of people said X, one said Y, and they choose that one, then there is some explaining to do, which they better have done in their response. But we can't do it because we don't know where from 0 to 100 they're going to choose on any given subject.
And the lady at the back has been very patient.
Wow, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
I never thought I'd ever be called patient in my life. I noticed, Lawrence, if you don't mind me calling you by your first name, that you said that Quorum doesn't make policy. And I've heard similar remarks made by the NDA over the years that they don't make policy either. Obviously, your body is a very key influencer of policy. And what many people are looking here to you tonight to indicate, I would say, is how you might influence a policy before it becomes that most terrible of all things, a white paper often set in stone, although printed on paper. And one of the things I'd like to know if Quorum is considering is the issue of whether there's going to be a plan B. And it goes to the heart of what you'll be discussing with the NDA in Sellafield tomorrow. People may be aware that during the last MRWS process, DECC officials kept saying, Plan B is to make Plan A work. There is no Plan B. Cumbria kind of presented them unexpectedly with a Plan B. But all joking aside, you could be looking, as you know, at not just 100, possibly 200 years storage of some nuclear materials. You talk in your report on spent fuel and plutonium reuse, possibly of storing plutonium that's been through a reactor up to 2,180. With the best will in the world, there could be delays and delays for a whole range of reasons about why materials or nuclear materials, wastes, are not disposed of. Will Quorum be asking the government to put in place not just a 50-year, not just a 100-year, but something like a 200 to 300-year Plan B, or is it sticking with the line that it will dispose of this waste within, say, the next 100 years or, say, 150 years?
Thank you for that question. I mean, yes, we don't make policy. That's not our job. That's for the government to make policy. It's for the government to defend its policy. We are there to provide advice to government when they're making that policy, and we will continue to do that in response to your views about storage. And we are obviously scrutinising that the radioactive wastes that we currently have that are being stored safely and securely, and we give our advice if we were to find that that was not the case. So I don't know how much more I can say on that. It's not a policy issue for us. It's not for us to tell the country how to read the policy. It's for us to give them advice on the policy that they are proposing.
Well, sorry, just quickly, you could advise them to have longer term plans than the ones they have at present. You could advise them to do that. Will you, I'm not putting you on the spot to answer now, will you be considering any of that kind of advice as part of a range of options even?
Quorum 1 was given the remit of finding what was the most appropriate solution at the time. Quorum 1 between 2003 and 2006 reviewed all the options and came to the conclusion that for those radioactive wastes that required isolation for long periods of time, geological disposal was the most appropriate solution given the knowledge at that time. That is the position that this committee considered and reinforced that advice that we believe that geological disposal is the right solution. We also believe that the geological disposal should be based on volunteerism approach. It's up to communities to volunteer to undertake that. Our remit at the moment is, our advice at the moment is in relation to the geological disposal. Your views do not go unnoticed, and we certainly understand them. The gentleman with the blue shirt on waiting for some time, and then I'll come to
John Wilson, I'm involved with the Cumbria Trust and was involved in the latter part of MRWS process. I think a lot of us have got lots of questions, but I'm not going to ask a question that I intended to ask. I just want to, I suppose, reiterate a point that a few people have made tonight. Firstly, the very first point that was made about trust. The government, in the form of DECC, in my opinion, has proved itself thus far to be entirely untrustworthy in its approach to this process. As things stand, quite frankly, I think the majority of people that know quite a lot about this matter now, particularly the GDF side of things, are very, very suspicious, cynical and disconcerted by the role that Quorum has played and may play in this process going forward. To pick up one, and I'll give you for instance, here's for instance, tonight people have picked you up on the point about the county council exclusion. Now people would describe that process, if that was happening in North Korea or something like that, as gerrymandering perhaps, something like that. DECC is trying to justify it based upon the European principle of subsidiarity, which I'll come back to in a minute. You actually just said before that you really didn't. You were just kind of saying, well, yeah, we're not really sure. Well,
I said quite clearly that we realised that local people should take the decision. We understood.
No, hang on a minute. The question that you were asked to respond to in the consultation was whether you were broadly in agreement with the district councils having effectively the sole decision-making process. And you actually said,
yes.
You said it's understandable.
Exactly.
Now maybe it was written by one of the two lawyers on your committee, where I noticed you've got two lawyers and one geologist, which is interesting in itself. The reality is that any layperson reading that paragraph would assume that you were at the very least ambivalent towards the prospect of the county council being excluded.
And our response.
I've read it a number of times. I'll read it out. Do you want me to read it out to you now?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Oh. It was here a minute ago. I don't know what I've done with it. It was here. Oh, hang on. Yeah, you said. You said Quorum is supportive of the broad concept of local decision making, not defining what local decision making means, and believes that designated decision makers should be locally based, not defined. Quorum therefore believes that the proposal for the decision maker to be at district council level is understandable.
Understandable, yeah. We can understand where they're coming from. I'm not saying we agree.
This is a waste of money.
There's no comment.
Waste of taxpayers' money.
Then there are some legal words about, yeah, it then says, however, the new white paper should include all the alternatives, list the pros and cons of each option, and provide a detailed explanation of why decision making at the district level is the preferred option.
Exactly.
And when they say put it in a hole in the ground, you'll say that's understandable.
In particular, vague terms such as prominent roles should be made more explicit. Now, that is not, excuse my paraphrasing, but those are legal words, weasel words, that give the general impression that you're sitting on the fence, going along with the DECC proposal. Because the specific question was, do you agree, yes or no? And the only categorical statement in there is that you believe it's understandable.
If you read this document, you will find that in this document, we actually objected to many of the things that were put in that consultation document. We said no, we said there are different ways of doing things.
But listen, the whole point is about
what
trust.
you're trying to do, I mean, to go back to your point about trust, it's absolutely essential. And quite clearly from the responses in this room, it's clearly a lack of trust.
Okay, can I make just a
and
point?
what we say, if you read the whole of our document, and what we're saying is that whoever volunteers or whoever wishes to volunteer, whoever wishes to participate, there should be an ongoing dialogue to build that trust before the decision is taken to say either yes, I'll volunteer, or no, I don't. We understand the concept.
Are you aware that the premise that DECC based its recommendation on in this regard, based upon the approach in other European countries, is actually completely inherently flawed?
Well, it's a consultation document, right? It put out for consultation. You all responded to it. We responded to it. Let's wait and see how. This is DECC's proposal after, as it's been pointed out, the earlier call for evidence in relation to the MIWS debacle, in which 59%, I think, of the respondents expressed that there should be a National Geological Survey, which has obviously been ignored completely. And furthermore, as somebody's pointed out, only 3, including one individual, suggested the county council is a good idea. Then the government come out and say, well, actually, we think we should exclude the county councils based upon subsidiarity, localism. The reality is, drawing an analogy from France, as for instance, where in France it's taken at a local level, and you know what that is? The equivalent here, do you know? County council. You've made your point. We understand the point.
Well, the thing
wait and see what comes out of the document.
I'd like to say thank you, but I can't.
I'm the only member of the committee that has worked in local government. I spent most of my planning career Suffolk County Council and North Yorkshire County Council, where I was county planning officer. I see a role very clearly, and spoke in the committee about this, role for all 3 tiers of local government, county, district, if it's a 2-tier system, and parishes, to be involved. I signed up to the paragraph 45 quite clearly, along with colleagues, in the knowledge that everyone has a role to play. I didn't sign up to, it's the district that has the only role. And I, strongly support local government. The way it's constructed at the moment, in some places, as the gentleman across here made, we have very large unitary authorities. Unitary authorities that cover a large area. My final job was in Highland Council. Highland Council was a unitary authority, which is in fact 20% bigger than Wales, and yet still had local decision making. The fact is, I sign up completely and entirely to paragraph 45, where we did not say that the county and the parishes were excluded. We said it was understandable why DECC floated the idea. We do not know, and the responses to the consultation document are very clear, that the majority of respondents did not support that suggestion. We will look with interest at whether DECC respond and how they respond and how they justify that response. If they stick to the districts, or how do they justify it? If they change, again, how they justify it.